How's it going, guys? My name is MrHurriicane, and welcome to the Minnesota Gophers Dynasty Season 5 Edited Offseason. This is the condensed version of my 3+ hour live stream last week of the full offseason, so if you wish to watch the longer version, the link to that is in the description. And I'll keep this pretty much the same as my other edited off-seasons. We're going to recap Season 5 and then get into the off-season and get you guys ready for Season 6. Even though Minnesota was only 5th in the Big Ten by the end of the season, this was easily the most successful year in the Dynasty, going 8-4 in the regular season and then capping it off with a bowl victory. That made it the best season in the series so far, at least from a winning perspective. And then from a team perspective, it was exciting to see guys like Andy McKenzie come in his first year and meet expectations and lead us to our best year in the series. And he was helped out by guys like Doug Duckett, who had his best season in the series. He's continually improved his numbers every year he's been playing, and then Drew Wolitarsky took a step back in the numbers, partially because Doug Duckett took such a big step forward, but Drew was still a big part of the offense. One guy who needs to have a bigger part in his senior year is Adam Kirkpatrick, and I think with us graduating Eric Carter and Drew Wolitarsky, you're going to see a lot more Adam Kirkpatrick in the passing game in Season 6. On defense, we saw two versions of our defense this season. There was the one who could not get pressure, was not forcing many turnovers, and was getting a lot of points scored on. And then there was the version that was getting a ton of pass rush and keeping teams to under 20 points. One area I wish we would have been a lot better, though, was forcing turnovers. I had the big prediction last offseason of 10 interceptions for Sam Graves. He ended up with only 2. He had a lot of deflections, some drop picks. And I think the strongest part of our defense was where you see the All-Americans right here. Marcus Hudson and Deniro Laster. A lot of tackles for loss with those two guys, and also Dan Smith, who isn't on these lists. But then you go back to the offense, and we have some freshman All-Americans. Of course, Andy McKenzie, and then there's Chris McKnight for Wisconsin, who ran all over us in that late season meeting. Going down the list, Corey Boyd also. Don't forget about him. He was a redshirt freshman starting at free safety, and I thought he was one of our most solid players on defense this season. Now looking at the All-Big Ten, nothing from the offense. We're not seeing any love for guys like Doug Duckett. No Andy McKenzie, but we do see Deniro Laster and Marcus Hudson on there again, and then Ryan Santoso, of course, our senior kicker, and then Andre Gaines is their second team All-Big Ten, as well as our left tackle Alex Mays. Looking through the bowl results here, you see a lot of Big Ten teams in these bowls. Usually you do, because it's a big conference with a lot of good teams, but the conference has only gotten stronger in this series. And there was 2 Big Ten teams in the BCS National Championship game, so that tells you pretty much all you need to know. And us being 9-4, that puts us in 5th place in the Big Ten. So even though we are improving greatly, we are 9-4 now, have a solid roster, I think. We've done really well recruiting these last 2 years. There's still a lot to do to overcome the teams that are currently in front of us on paper. But with that is the end of the recap, and we'll actually get to the off-season portion of this video now with players leaving. And a big wrench was thrown to the plans as soon as we got into the off-season, with kicker Kevin Curry saying that he does not want to stay in Minnesota, wishes to transfer, and we cannot convince him to stay. This was the only kicker on our roster. Santoso graduated, so now I'm left with no kicker, and I have to scramble to try to get one. Thankfully, nobody else leaving was anybody but a senior. Everybody was just graduating, and they only projected one guy to go in the draft, and that was Drew Wolitarsky. And surprisingly enough, he was the only player to get drafted from this team. No Sam Graves, Maurice Manning. I thought those guys were locks to at least go mid-round or late, but Drew is the only one that gets drafted, so I guess that helps our pro potential rating a little bit, but not as much as I wish it would have. That is very disappointing. Now to one of the most time-consuming tasks of the off-season recruiting. In the last 2 years, I think we've had great classes entering the off-season. During the season, we are getting a lot of our highest-rated players, but now obviously I had to go and try to get a kicker, so I threw a couple on the board. Jorge Thibodeau's not going to cut it. Donald Brandt. That's kind of what I'm looking for right there. Accuracy better than power, but we need a kicker. And whoever we get would be playing as a true freshman. So there was already 9 guys on the list so far that were committed to our team for next year, and they were all defensive players. This was a very heavily focused defensive recruiting class. And I think improving our defense and especially our front seven is going to be the key to helping us take the next level as a team. So we have a lot of pass rushes on here and a lot of safeties. It wasn't really a focus of mine to go after a bunch of safeties, but I wasn't going to ignore guys that have interest in us or are really good players than we could get. So I'll probably not really bother with safety too much next year with all the guys we're getting now, and then some outside linebackers. Like, we already had the guy I wanted the most, who was Reggie Carter. But one guy who I found late in the year, he's a gem, David McClelland, a junior college transfer, 6'3", great speed, great man coverage ability. I'm not even considering the offensive side of the ball with him. He's got to be a corner in my eyes, and that's going to be where he excels the best, and he's already committed to us. So the guys remaining were people who I wanted to develop over the next couple of years to take over roles, down the line. Kevin Martindale's a senior, so we have to look after a new running back. Doug Duckett's a senior. We just had 2 guys graduate, so I have to build up the depth once again. Like in the very beginning, running back and receiver were a great focus, and that's part of why they've been such a strength for us. There were a handful of guys we were in battles for, like the 70 overall guard Noah Hawley. It was a big mess there with Oklahoma, UMass, and Nebraska at the top along with us. And O-line depth is something I don't want to neglect anymore. I did for too long, and we paid for it. Started 2 true freshmen last year at guard, one of our biggest weaknesses. So trying to correct that. Obviously, those guys are going to develop and get better, but want to have good guys behind them. Later on, I found a 6'7" linebacker, Kyle Wilson, and I found that he can also move and cover, and with a 6'7" frame, it could be a lot of fun with him at outside linebacker. But with us not being on his interest board at all, this is where it gets confusing, thinking about how many points you have to put into a guy to win him and whether you can even get this guy at all. And it was the same with a kicker, Donald Brandt, and I put my most points into him because we really needed a kicker this season. And so I spent over an hour working on the recruiting board, and here is the result. Signing day. We do not get the kicker. As a matter of fact, it looks like nobody does. Alton Gaddis, we had such a big lead on him. Didn't get him either. We do get Kyle Wright and lose out on Kyle Wilson. I ended up playing conservative with Wilson, thinking I couldn't get him, and it was easier than I thought it was going to be. It's not the most straightforward process. I mean, look at the kicker, Donald Brandt. I put over $5,000 into him and came up $700 short. We missed out on many guys that I really wanted to get to end up finishing out a recruiting class, but we do get receiver Lee James, who's a speed threat and will develop a little bit. Tony Hunter, defensive tackle. Emmanuel Harrison, outside backer. Henry Hooper, wide receiver. Ronnie Osborne, the corner, and Caleb Wilson, the defensive end. So we ended up with 20 guys in the recruiting class, including a couple of guys here. I believe this is where the walk-ons come into play a little bit. There's a couple of guys I did not offer to, or at least don't remember offering to. They weren't on my board at the very end. Guys like the halfback Brian Randall. So we'll move on now to changing positions for just the athletes, basically. Vincent Walker, I said he was going to be a middle linebacker. That's where he's going to be best. Calvin Hall fits best as a safety. I put him on the strong side. And then David McClelland, he could be a great corner. He could be a good safety. Wide receiver, we're going to stick with corner for our 6'3" super athlete we found in junior college. And now for my favorite part of the offseason, the training results. I love seeing how much better all these players got. And look at the leap for Andy McKenzie, now a 92 overall, and he was already very, very good last year. Only getting better, and it's his sophomore season. It could be very special with Andy McKenzie. At running back, I'm excited to get Kevin Martindale back and the emergence of Alonzo Holland. He is one of the guys I'm most excited to see out of all the players who have never taken a snap for this team. I think he'll bring a power element to our running game we haven't seen yet in this series. At receiver, Doug Duckett, of course, is our top player, and then we have some question marks. David Clark, Martin Parker, Jared Rollins, Terrence Johnson. On this team, outside of Doug Duckett, all our receivers combine for only 41 catches. 36 to Clark, 5 to Parker, none to Rollins or Johnson. So it's going to be interesting. On the offensive line, we returned 4 of 5 starters, all but our left tackle, and so I expect the interior to be much stronger, and Andy McKenzie hopefully won't be sacked as much. Now on defense, we lose 7 starters, so seeing these guys improve is huge, as now we're starting last year's nickel corner, 3rd defensive end off the bench, 4th linebacker off the bench, 3rd defensive tackle off the bench. There's just so many guys who are getting a chance to play that had only been role players in the past and are now taking a big jump from going from about 10 snaps a game to around 60. So I'm not sure what fair expectations of this defense are. I think we have a lot of capable players stepping into these big roles, like Matt Smith becoming our number 1 corner, and then Paul Patrick going from number 4 to number 2 on the outside. This will really test how well I had recruited in the middle years of this dynasty. Now to cutting players and getting to our final roster. This time around, we have to cut 6 players to get down to 70, and one of them will not be walk-on kicker Courtney Hogan. He has to stay on the roster, but he's likely not going to play. We're going to cut a quarterback right away, Jamal Brown, walk-on quarterback from Georgia. That brings us to 5 left. Ethan Cross, didn't see much here that I like, so he is going to get cut. 4 to go, we have Gavin Thurman, defensive tackle. He's gone. Fan favorite Leon Daniels, sticking around for now at least. To strong safety, there's a lot of depth here, and there's a redshirt senior right here, Ryan Barnes. Sadly, I have to cut him. We still have like 7 safeties left on the roster. Also cutting Brian Randall, who was the 5th running back on the depth chart. We're going to be left with 4, so 1 to go. And Leon Daniels is sitting right there. But I came to the decision I'm going to humor the Leon Daniels fan base for one final time. Junior corner Derek Robinson had been buried on the depth chart and will be below a lot of guys even in his senior year, and so I figured, just like last year, if there's going to be a player who isn't playing at all, it might as well be the one that has a huge legion of fans, and so that's the last time. Looking at the redshirted players now, Greg Kelly was a guy who I thought about playing as a true freshman. I typically don't play many true freshmen at all. I like getting guys the extra year of development, but I may take off the redshirt to get another pass rusher. And then also Reggie Carter. I really like him, but for now I think we're okay at linebacker. But if our pass rush suffers early, you might see me take the redshirt off Greg Kelly and try to get us some more disruption up front. I also made the tough decision to redshirt David McClelland as he's a junior this year, and I didn't want his junior season to be spent as a 3rd or 4th corner, and so I like to get 2 years out of him as maybe a starter in the next 2 years. Now to our schedule, and look at this, we're actually playing 3 non-conference games before Big Ten play. When is the last time we did that? We open up against Memphis, Cal, and Boise State, so a tough non-conference schedule, and then of course a challenging Big Ten lineup. Now a sneak peek at recruiting before the season begins, and look at this. A 6'2", 255-pound running back who has excellent speed for his size and a full arsenal of running back moves. Yeah, he's number 1 on our board. I want Aaron Higdon more than anybody else so far. I'm only showing a little bit of recruiting though because the board changes a lot, especially early. So I'm not going to dig into too many of these players. You're seeing some of the top guys rated on the board, and you might see me get into recruiting more towards, week 5 or 6, somewhere like that, when I finally get kind of 25 guys or so that I'm really looking at getting. We have 19 seniors this year, so I want to get about 20 to 25 players. The remainder of the video will be practice mode gameplay from the live stream. If you wish to only watch that part, I recommend it. It's part 2, and it's about a half hour of practice mode, and I go through all the starters, a lot of the backups, and you're seeing some of the highlights from the practice mode here. But I just want to talk about the team now entering Season 6. Now that the offseason is over, I have not fully simulated to the start of the year. I have some things to finish up with recruiting, but I pretty much know the depth chart going into Week 1 against Memphis and what I'm, expecting this year. And I'm really excited, especially after the success last year, Andy McKenzie. It's great to have a dynamic quarterback that exactly fits the offense that I have built for this team. I have changed some things with some of the formations and gotten some new plays in the playbook, some new packages, as I want to get, Kevin Martindale and Maurice Pratt on the field at the same time, and also Alonzo Holland. I love our backs this year. This may be the most excited I've been about our running backs in the entire series, because obviously Kevin Martindale, we know what he brings to the table. As long as he stays healthy, he's dangerous. Maurice Pratt last year as a role player, he was dynamic, and he made many big plays in key games late in the year. And then we get Alonzo Holland, the junior college transfer coming off of his redshirt season, and he's got 2 years of eligibility left, and he is a great power back. And with the offense, you may see a bit of an identity switch this year. In the past, we've had great receiving depth, and now I feel good about our depth, but I don't know a lot about these guys. Can David Clark go from being a number 4 receiver to a number 2 and be consistent? He had only 8 catches last year. And then there's Martin Parker, who I have high expectations for, but we've only seen him play a little bit. And now, with us having Doug Duckett, Adam Kirkpatrick, and a great slew of running backs, I think you're going to see a little bit different version of our offense this year. Our definite strength is at running back, and so I want to do a lot more with our split backfields and getting two on the field at the same time, whether it's Holland and Pratt, Martindale and Holland, and then a lot of two receiver sets until I'm more confident in our depth, and then a lot of Adam Kirkpatrick. I believe our senior tight end will have his best season in his senior year. Now let's talk some defense, and Leon Daniels is not going to start, but why does it say he's an impact player? That was definitely one of the funniest moments of the live stream, and I also like seeing this. Alonzo Holland run two guys over, get across the 35-yard line. You're also seeing Andrew Johnson, our backup quarterback, as you never know if you have to see your backup play. And then look at Terrence Johnson. Look at all these tackles he breaks on this run as he gets all the way across the 40-yard line. But on defense, like I said, there's going to be 7 new starters. There's 7 seniors gone from last year. Leon Daniels just jacked up our fullback. I don't get it. How is this happening? Anyway, the best way to sum up our defense is that a lot of guys who are role players are now starters, and you guys already know them. Marcus Woods, Sean Wright, Jonathan Starks. Can they handle starting roles? Week 1 against Memphis is going to be a big week for our defense and seeing what we're starting out with 7 brand new starters on defense. Anyway, that is the end of the edited offseason, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and are ready for Season 6. We'll be kicking off the season later this week, along with a touchdown montage between this video and Week 1. I'll be highlighting every touchdown from last year, along with defensive plays as well, interceptions, big hits, and the like, big plays. So, anyway, guys, leave your feedback below in the comment section. What did you think of the offseason? And tell me, what do you think our record will be in Season 6 after a 9-4 season last year with a bowl victory? What are your expectations for Season 6 in the Minnesota Gophers Dynasty? Thank you guys for watching. I can't wait to kick off Season 6, and so I'll see you later this week. Have a great day, and I'll see you then.